It is Friday, January 10th, 2025. This is another postseason edition of Football Today. It is presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL. You know that dude, Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. Justin Pennick and producer Connor, they're hanging out at the warehouse doing some stuff, but don't worry, they'll be fully entrenched on all six playoff games this weekend. Bobby, if you ask me, I think Pennick is just scared of losing his lead and doesn't want to have to make picks against the two of us this week.
I think we should start fresh too.
Hmm.
Set it straight because this is what really matters. Hey, and is your Super Bowl is it still alive, right? You had the Packers.
And Bengals.
Ah, damn. Justin had the Bengals. I had Lions over Chiefs, which I didn't get many things right this year, but I got the Chargers being really good, and then Lions Chiefs. I'm hoping to get that right in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, I mean, it feels good. I mean, the 2-1 seeds, we don't even have to talk about them at all today. So here's how we're going to do it. We're not going to do it in chronological order of when the games actually happen because we think maybe the most interesting game is going to be the meat part of Sunday's triple header sandwich. It'll be the 2-7 game in Philadelphia, the 11-6 Packers heading to the 14-3 Eagles. Certainly sounds like Jalen Hurts, after missing the last couple of games with a concussion issue, is going to be back under center. He had been practicing in a limited capacity as far as the taping of our show. Now, let's remember, last year the Packers became the first 7 seed to win a playoff game. They totally dismantled Dallas, taking a 4-score lead before hanging on. It really never was close. I worry a little bit more about them this time around. How much do you like Philadelphia in this game, Bobby?
I, I feel pretty confident in that. I do think both these teams are not crazy different than that first matchup, but I think the Eagles are pretty different where they've leaned into the run game. That defense has really gelled since then. But we also with the Packers, I know Jordan Love hasn't played amazing down the stretch, but it's just like last year, where last year he had 10 interceptions in the first 9 games, one at the last eight. This year, 11 interceptions in the first 8 games, zero in the last seven. So that's different too. Two really good rushing attacks, but I just trust the Eagles against good teams better, right? And it shows in the record. The Eagles are 4-2 versus playoff teams, Packers 2-5. And I think even though the Packers run game is really good, I just think the Eagles have the ultimate part of that where they can just really lean on their run game and the AJ Brown on the outside who we can just throw the ball to down the field.
It was interesting. If you hit the rewind button last year when you had Green Bay going into Dallas, Green Bay had to really kick it into gear just to get into the playoffs. And then they were just, I believe, a game over 500 when they made it down to Arlington. And let's remember, Dallas was a dominant home team. Their defense looked exceptional under then defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, and they got their doors blown off. So I wonder if Green Bay, a year wiser, has that in them. I suppose if you're supposed to look at, all both sides of the ball for each team, I think, we know about Philly's offense. We know about Green Bay's offense. We know about Philly's defense, which is number 2 in scoring and number 1 in total defense. What we don't talk about is Green Bay's defense. Can they make enough plays? Can they stop Saquon? Because they're one of the best in the league against the run. Uh, that's the question I've got is can they keep Green Bay in the game enough?
Yeah, that's the thing. That, like you said, they are one of the best against the run. Seventh in total rushing, third in yards per carry, second in EPA, sixth in success rate. The issue though is that the Eagles are one of those teams that they still lean on you, right? They have the offensive line and they have the running back to add those extra yards, and it's different than week one. Edgerrin Cooper has become a real player for the Packers where he barely played in that first matchup. But I think the Eagles have the ultimate cheat code of throwing the ball to AJ Brown, right? And we saw that be a big part of week one. Jair Alexander's gone for the Packers now. I think they have that ultimate cheat code, and this isn't a Dan Quinn defense. This is a Vic Fangio defense. It's essentially the exact opposite in style, and it's going to force the Packers to be patient, right? It's going to force Jordan Love to be patient, and we know he's someone who kind of wins when he's on the big game hunting.
And interestingly enough, if Hurts and Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are all there together and healthy, The Eagles this season 9-0 when the three of them start and finish games. They also just recently got Dallas Goedert back. I think that was in week 18.
Yeah.
So yet another weapon available for them. On the other side of things, Christian Watson, the torn ACL. We speculated about that on Monday's show, and now it was affirmed, which really stinks. Green Bay 1-3 this year when he plays fewer than 40% of snaps in a game. So people will say, well, you know what? He's just kind of a one-trick pony, and we can throw the ball down the field to him. Well, whatever it is, it means something to that Green Bay
Yeah,
offense.
that
And
one trick is important for what they do. Even if they're not
mhm.
throwing the ball to him, it's how the defense is respected. So like I think this Packers team is capable of going toe to toe with anybody. I just trust the Eagles more. I think they've clearly been the better team this year. And I think they have the type of stuff that wins consistently in the playoffs on both sides of the ball.
Okay, so overall, I'll give you your choice: Philadelphia, Green Bay.
I think the Eagles survive and advance to the divisional round.
Yeah, I don't. I actually do think that it'll be a good game. This is the juicy game. This is the most important television window, that late game on Sunday, and I think that they picked a great one. I do have Philadelphia. I think they'll probably win it by less than a score, but I think they're moving on, and I think they'll host the divisional round the next weekend. Pennick didn't give you a choice, right? He didn't give you any picks.
We'll have to have him send them in and put them in the comments or something.
Yeah, that'll be nice. That'll be nice for him. Yeah, I have no idea how we're doing on our picks, what we did last week, but that maybe I don't want to listen based on how I did during the year. Okay, the late game on Saturday is next up on the table for us. The Pittsburgh Steelers finished 10-7. Those 10 wins, by the way, the same exact number that they had last year with that three-headed quarterback monster, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who are playing their best football of the year, division champs at 12-5. Here's something interesting, Bobby. The home team has won 7 straight playoff matchups against divisional opponents. So that means that Pittsburgh's got to fight that. They've got to fight a 4-game losing streak. They've got to fight their offense not doing anything down the stretch. How in the world does Mike Tomlin get his first playoff win in 8 seasons?
I don't think it happens, but I think if it does, it's because of Todd Monken getting in his own way. We saw it last year in the AFC Championship game. We saw it in the first Steelers matchup, Rose. Make sure you run the ball in this game. No matter what the Steelers do to make you try and avoid running the ball, you have the pieces to keep doing it. I mean, you look at it, like the first game that these matched up, Henry got 13 carries, Lamar 4. Now Lamar got 4 for 56, so it was effective. The second one, Henry got 24, Lamar 9. Now Lamar's carries weren't as effective, but like make them respect that and make them play one of those two guys. Force them to make decisions. And you have the fullback and like you have so many things to make sure you do that. But I think the reality is the Steelers are just outmatched here. The Ravens have gotten so much better on defense to where they were earlier in the year, to where they're now probably playing like a top 5 unit compared to being below average in the beginning of the season. They've figured out ways to work around that offensive line. I mean, I think we're just looking at a superior team with the much superior quarterback in the Ravens.
Derrick Henry, 1,921 rushing yards. That is the most ever by a player who did not win the rushing title. And he does have a ton of playoff experience. 7 playoff games with the Titans. 3 of them he ran for over 150 yards. So, yes, I agree with you. I don't think Todd Monken last year in that AFC Championship game, the running backs ran it 6 times. Derrick Henry might get that on the first drive if they have things going.
And he should.
And he should, yeah, particularly with the absence of Zay Flowers. He hasn't totally been ruled out as of the taping of this show, but he did not practice the first 2 days of the week. That knee, it certainly doesn't sound like it's responding to treatment to get him ready for the wild card, maybe for the divisional round if they end up having that next week. But how much do you think that'll hurt Baltimore not having him? Or do you think it'll get them more focused on the running game and could actually be a benefit?
It does hurt them because I mean that's their guy that you just trust to go out there and win routes, like as simple as that. And I think he made the Pro Bowl this year too. Like
He did.
he's the one guy you can trust to go out there. Where I think Rashad Bateman's had a nice year, but I think a lot is scheme dependent on the way defenses play Lamar. So it does hurt in that sense, but I don't think it's going to kill them against the Steelers. I think the next round it could be the difference maker there, but. the Ravens to me have no excuse to lose this game to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now the Steelers have a defense that can get after you, and the Steelers are capable. I know they're on a losing streak. They are capable. Um, I just I just don't trust that Steelers offense to put up 24 points, and I think the Ravens can get to that mark.
So over the last month during this four-game losing streak, everybody wants to focus on Pittsburgh's offense, and with good reason. They're averaging 14 points per game in that stretch. But the Steelers are giving up more than 27 per game during this losing streak as well. They're going to have to come up with something. They tied with Minnesota for the most takeaways in the NFL. However, Baltimore's a team that protects the football. The one area where I think that Baltimore's susceptible, and it's been really the one bugaboo for Lamar, is that sometimes when he does stand in the pocket, he holds, and that's prime TJ Watt territory to come in and strip that thing. And I think that's what Pittsburgh's going to need. They're going to need a couple of short fields if they have any chance whatsoever here.
And hey, listen, those are the ways Lamar has lost in the playoffs is because of those three plays of a game that he doesn't make and sets up the other team. Um, and I'm not surprised if the Ravens season ends like that. But like anytime like you make anytime I make a point for why the Steelers can win this, I just look at the opposite side. I'm like, okay, but the Ravens have the second most sacks in the NFL this year, and they're playing a quarterback who takes a ton of sacks and Russell Wilson, right? And Wilson's kind of been figured out where it's just deep to check down. But so yeah, I mean, this Steelers defense is really good. And like you said, they've been bad. They can make the plays. And hell, Lamar's only played one really good game against the Steelers. He has been bad outside that last matchup, so I don't want to throw that all away because of one game in the last month for the Steelers. So Steelers, but the Steelers are going to have to hold them to 16-18 to win this game,
You know, that's a
which they are capable of doing, right? If
yeah,
Tucker's kicking woes come back up, they are capable of doing, but they're going to have to play like really clean ball.
yeah. Well, that's what they did in the Week 11 matchup. I believe that's what it was, 18-16, the final in Pittsburgh. Bigger picture here. Let's say that the Ravens end up winning this game at home, as expected. Let's say the Steelers, I'm not going to say they're a no-show because that so rarely happens under Mike Tomlin, but let's say they lose by 10 points or whatever it is. How loud are the calls for the Steelers to revamp? And what I mean by that is hit the eject button on Mike Tomlin. And yes, he's been legendary. He's been great. You can even talk Hall of Fame candidacy with him. But maybe enough is enough.
It's just not going to, even if there is calls for that, because if they lose, they'll be like, oh, they haven't won the playoff game since then. But in reality, is their strengths have killed them. They haven't been able to get that quarterback situation figured out, and they really haven't passed up like what, you know, I've been critical of the Colts and how they've team built, right? But it's like, all right, but tell me the situation where they had the opportunity to get the quarterback and they didn't. The Steelers haven't had that. So I'm sure there will be talks about it, but in reality, we know the Steelers are just not going to do that unless Mike Tomlin decides to retire.
I wonder though if that's yeah, I mean, listen, he could go to TV and be a star wherever he wants to end up or on a streaming platform, whatever it is. Um, but I do, the Steelers don't change anything, right? Ever since Chuck Noll, we're talking about three total coaches. Two of them have ended up in Canton, and a third certainly is going to have a shot at getting there with the resume he's put forth. But I do think that maybe at some point he would have enough of this situation and want to coach elsewhere. No?
Coach elsewhere? I don't think so. I think he likes being in because he knows like if I'm doing good, I'm not going to ever be scapegoated for whatever is holding
Mhm.
this team back, which is the quarterback. And he knows that if he goes, yeah, like could he go to some other situation and like drop him into New England or Jacksonville or whatever, like name the place as a quarterback that you like. But he knows like if it goes mediocre or below average in 2 years, that they'll fire him. Where in Pittsburgh, that's not going to happen. So, but could he retire and like you said, go to TV? Absolutely, but. I don't. I think he's very happy, and I don't think he wants to go coach anywhere else.
All right, we got four more games to break down on Wild Card Weekend. It's all coming your way. But first, this word from my friend, Bobby Skinner.
I want to talk to you guys about something, football fans. It's playoff time. We've got some exciting games to look forward to, and you can get in on all the playoff action right friggin' now with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Not yesterday, right now. They are offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5 when you use code football today. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets or DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Love the thrill of live betting? Question mark? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games as they happen, making watching the games that much more exciting. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code football today. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's code football today only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. You'll be glad you did.
All right. You'll be glad that you tune into all 6 games this weekend of Wild Card Weekend. That's what we're doing. We're breaking it down. It'll wrap up Monday, fingers crossed, in the city of Los Angeles. Of course, that is pending these horrific fires that are going on out here. They do have a backup plan.
Yeah, how are you, by the way? I forgot that. I was going to text you this morning, but then I was like,
Appreciate
it's
it.
really early.
Yeah, it's been terrible out here. Thankfully, where we are, we've been 6 to 8 miles from the gnarliest stuff that's gone on in the Pacific Palisades and things of that nature. Um, but I mean, it's a huge gut punch to the city. It's just unreal, and you're just we have bags packed. We have just
Yeah.
It's weird looking at what you've had for decades together as a family and saying, okay, here's 6 suitcases. Figure out what you want to take. So we are ready. We're on standby. We've got cars pointed in the direction, and we've got a plan of action and ready to go. But it's been like my brother had to evacuate last night. He's good. He allowed back in his area, but it's just horrible on so many levels. So I appreciate you asking. A lot of people have asked on social media. So there you go. That's your update. Thank you. As for the Rams, we think they're hosting a game Monday night at SoFi. They will play host to the 14-3 Minnesota Vikings. Those 14 wins, by the way, most ever by a non-number one seed in the playoffs. We saw what happened to Sam Darnold and that Vikings offense on the road in Detroit last Sunday. Is that the biggest question now going into this Monday night, or can Sam Darnold shake off the ghosts of Jets and Panthers past?
I do think that's the question because, like, this decision can make, or this game can make the difference of millions of dollars for Sam Darnold. It can really make the difference. Um, my question to you, Rose, and we got to get stats and research on this, is has there ever been a team that regular season and playoffs only loses 4 games, and those 4 games are to the same 2 teams?
Ooh, wow. That's a great question. 4 games, but only against 2 teams. I mean, I would say yes, because the odds of you facing the same team in the playoffs, it's while being such few wins. That's a great question. Good one.
And here's the thing, Rose. I give them a like if they're playing the Packers, I'm picking them to win. They're playing the Eagles. I think I might take the Vikings, or at least it's closer than the Packers. They're playing the Commanders. I'm taking them to win. They're playing the Bucks. I'm taking them to win. They're playing the Rams. I don't think they're going to win because here's the big thing for me, and it's not just their game that they lost on Thursday Night Football, 2 months ago or whatever it was. I think Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC that's in the playoffs.
Oh, really?
Really, and especially against a Vikings Brian Flores type defense, right? Where they have the guys like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, where you line up guys on the line, we're going to screen you to death, right? We're going to screen you to death, and then when you back out, I'm going to sit in the pocket. I'm going to hang in here. They didn't pressure them at all in that last matchup, and I'm going to hit you in that 10 to 20 yard range, which a lot of quarterbacks don't have the confidence to do. Stafford does, went 8 for 10, 2 touchdowns in that range. And the Rams have done a good job protecting Stafford. And like you have Cooper Kupp, who's like this one of the smartest receivers when you are throwing those blitzes, knows where to sit, knows where to carry something vertical. I I think this Rams team is really dangerous. A lot more dangerous than we're giving it credit for because it's a very young defense. But that offense, man, Stafford, Puka, Kupp, their offensive line is solid. Their run game's been pretty damn good. You have what I think is the best coach in the NFL in Sean McVay. And then on the defensive side, yeah, they're young, but they got talent, man. They got Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, Cam Kitchens. Like I really think this Rams team is dangerous. And they are I think they're the ultimate wild card round team that you just don't want to face.
Yeah, the defense in particular over the last month carried this football team, right? They gave up less than 14 points per game. And if you look at what Stafford did down the stretch, first of all, he rested week 18, which I thought was a really good thing for he and Nakua and Cooper Kupp. It cost them a seeding. They fell from 3 to 4, but I think that Sean McVay looks at the big picture and says it's way more important to rest those three guys than to make sure we're getting a home game regardless, and we're going to have to play tough team on the road most likely in round two anyway, so it doesn't really matter to us. Stafford down the stretch, 3 straight games where he didn't pass for 200 yards. He has one touchdown pass since week 15. It's just crazy stuff. Now, you talked about him being the best quarterback in the NFC that's left. Um, Certainly his playoff pedigree would say that. He averages nearly 310 passing yards per game. That is the most of any quarterback in playoff history with at least 5 games played in the postseason. So something happens to him where he really locks in. I think it's going to be a fascinating match against Brian Flores and that defense, which was in top 5 in a ton of categories. And I thought played really, really well against Detroit. You look at the final score, 31-9. That defense was really the only reason the Vikings were still in the game for 3 quarters.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and like Stafford's going to make the throws against that defense that I don't trust even other good quarterbacks to make against the Minnesota Vikings. Now here's the thing: is the Rams aren't going to attack the Vikings the same way the Lions did, right? They're not going to blitz and play a ton of man coverage, right? Where it wasn't even that Darnold was making bad decisions; he was just missing. So I think Sam Darnold can play well in this game, and I think he will, right? I don't think he's going to light it up. I don't think he's going to have this stinker where we're like, oh, this is seeing ghosts, Sam. But I think he'll have a middle of the road game, and I think Stafford's going to step up to the plate and win it. But what are your expectations for Darnold in this game? And I don't want to get too much into his future, but like what it leads to.
I think I think he plays okay. He played pretty well against the Rams in that Week 8 loss.
Yeah.
So I think he'll play fine. I think that Kevin O'Connell will do a good job to get him some good, easy throws. The fact that the Lions held Jefferson and Addison to combine 4 catches was unreal on Sunday night.
And I don't think the
So
Rams are going to do that.
I don't either. In fact, I feel like I said, I think there's going to be some easy pitch and catch out of the gate. He's got to restore that confidence because you can't have him on the road. He's misfired on some, 17-yard passes early. I don't see that. And I think that the Rams defense will be ready for it. I think he'll play fine. Um, and I think that they're going to franchise him. I think regardless of the outcome this year, they
Yeah.
franchise him. I
That's
think
the
that's the
smart
way
thing
it
to
ends
do.
up. I think that's the way it goes. I don't know if we officially made a prediction on Baltimore Pittsburgh. It certainly sounded like we were both leaning Baltimore there.
Yeah.
What about here with the Rams and the Vikings?
I got Stafford and Cam Kinchens and the Rams moving on.
You know what? I'll go opposite you this time. I think that the Vikings will rebound. I think this is a
Okay.
really tough matchup for LA. Um, I'm a huge, I've said this a bunch of times this year that Kevin O'Connell's kind of my coaching crush. I know this is a guy who coached under Sean McVay, so they know each other very well. But I think it's going to be a really, really good game, like tight. I think a 3-point game either way. But I'll go with Minnesota.
I think we
Uh,
get late third, early fourth quarter. Sam Darnold play action, overthrows a receiver into Cam
oh,
Kinchens. Producer Connor,
oh,
send this clip to social media team when it happens.
okay, good. I'll applaud you. You know what? I'll applaud you right now, Bobby. Good job on that
That's
prediction.
my one random prediction for the NFL round.
Sunday night football, the end of triple header Sunday, the 12-5 Washington Commanders at the 10-7 Buccaneers. Did you say you're going to this game?
And I could not be more excited to go to a game because I think we have two top five offenses versus two below average defenses, and I am excited to see how it goes.
What is the headline for you in this one?
Jaden Daniels. It's Jaden Daniels' first playoff matchup. This is a week one rematch. I think Jaden is a totally different quarterback than what he was week one, right? Where I thought he didn't have any desire to push the ball in that game. Now there's a lot of things have changed. The Commanders have added Marshawn Lattimore. The Bucks lost Chris Godwin, right? So those are two big a big addition and a big loss. Lattimore, I'm I'm so glad that football, we finally lost Lattimore from the Mike Evans rivalry, and we get them to play in a playoff game. Bucky Irving has become the lead dog, but to me, it's Jaden. Just storyline is Jaden Daniels. And I was just doing some prep and I ran into this that they have put the offense more in Jaden Daniels' hands down the stretch, and it has produced for them, but it's also led to some more negatives too, right? Like first 10 games, I'm going to go through Jaden Daniels. Two interceptions, 46 rushing yards per game, less than 1.8 sacks per game, nine touchdowns, right? Kind of modest numbers, but good for a rookie. The last 7 games, he's had seven interceptions compared to 2 and 10. 15 more rushing yards per game, 2 more sacks per game, but also, Rose, in 3 less games, he has 7 more passing touchdowns. So he's producing more, but he's playing with more confidence, but is leading to some more turnovers and taking more sacks. Can Jaden have the big stuff and not have the turnovers? Because you can Jaden Daniels, I think we can walk away from it and say he played really well in this game, especially when you're grading on the rookie curve. But the Bucks will outscore you if you just play a good game, right? The Bucks will outscore you. You're going to have to outscore them, and the way to do that is by not giving them any opportunities to capitalize on turnovers.
I think this will be a ton of fun, this game. It's not super sexy. When it first came out and went to Sunday Night Football, we were like, oh man, NBC really got boned. But when you start to really look at it and break it down, the Bucks are fourth in the NFL in points per game. Washington is fifth. I
Hmm.
think we could have a ton of points. Two quarterbacks that I think played significantly better than we expected this year. You laid out what Jaden Daniels did as the second overall pick this year. Baker, we know that he played exceptionally well his first season in Tampa. Got him to win a home playoff game against Philly and then had him right in contention before throwing that pick to Derek Barnes up there in Detroit last season. Um, but I want to applaud Liam Cohn. Everybody's talking about Cliff Kingsbury, and there's a couple of teams that have already said we want to interview him for head coaching vacancy, and if that's what he wants, I certainly hope that he gets whatever he deserves. Liam Cohn did a fantastic job because I think a lot of people thought when Dave Canales left Tampa and took the head coaching gig in Carolina that something was going to happen to Baker. And instead, you're talking about a 4,500-yard passing season, more than 40 touchdowns. Did he also tie for the league lead in interceptions? Yes, he did. But Baker will make those plays. But I thought he did so much more. I thought he utilized his legs beautifully at times. Last week, he ran for a career best 68 yards in some critical situations, picking up some key third downs. I like him against Dan Quinn's defense in this. And I think that, this is a time where he's got to show that he's worthy. So many people have been in Baker's corner and said, ha ha, look what happened to the Browns. Well, I think part of the reason that the Browns moved on from him wasn't that he couldn't win big in the regular season, which he's done for the most part, or that he could even win a playoff game or two. But is he good enough to lead a team all the way to the promised land? And this defense has been playing really good football since its bye in week 11, since it came back. I think they're primed and ready for a good run. I don't think they're scared of having to go play Detroit or go
They
play
beat Detroit.
Philadelphia. Yeah, they're not scared of those teams, but it starts with taking care of business at home against a rookie quarterback. And a lot of that is on Baker Mayfield.
Exactly, and I think it's a big Baker moment too, right? It's always going to be big for the quarterbacks. But you mentioned like last year, right? Baker has that comeback year, bounce back, but the Bucks made in the playoffs. But in reality, like remember last year, the Bucks didn't beat any team with a winning. I think they won like one game
Hmm.
against a team with a winning record. Well, let's look at them now. They beat the Commanders, who are they're playing in the playoffs. They beat the Lions, who are the number 1 seed. They beat the Eagles, who are the number 2 seed, and all of this. Like every playoff team, NFC playoff team they faced off, they beat. Right, and they've beat some AFC teams with the Chargers. They played the Chiefs really tight. They went score for score with the Ravens. So their uh, their offense is legit. And you mentioned Liam Cohen. I mean, I was hoping if the Giants fired Brian Dable, he was number one on my list of guys that I wanted to be my head coach. So these are the only two defenses in the first round that are below average in scoring. And then you have like you said, they're both top 5 scoring offenses. Like this is going to be both teams scoring 30 plus points, in my
And,
opinion. And I'm so
and
excited to be there for it.
Tampa Bay, don't get lulled to sleep here in terms of just saying, okay, let's put the ball in Baker's hands. I did say, yes, it could be a big Baker moment. Don't lose sight of the fact that you all average more than 5 yards per carry as a team. First team in NFL history to have a quarterback that completed more than 70% of his passes and a running game that averaged more than 5 yards per carry. Washington actually pretty good against the pass. If you just look, strictly at the numbers, giving up less than 190 yards per game through the air. If you have to run the football and grind it out, go do that.
Yeah,
Go
because Dan
go do
Quinn will
that.
let you do that, and if they
Hmm.
let you do it, and this is where like both these teams I think are different. Like Bucky Irving wasn't the lead dog, right? The rushing game was not there early on for Tampa, and then really started to come along with Bucky. As they put Rashad White in the back seat a bit. So I like the Bucks in this game, man. I think this is high scoring. I think this ends up being the most fun game of the weekend.
Either of us taking the road team?
Nah, I got to go with my Bucks. I'm going to be there rooting against for them and against my brother, who's a Commanders fan.
All right. Oh, that'll be fun for you. I love that. I'll go with the Bucks as well. Sunday gets started in Buffalo, where for the third straight year, the Bills are the 2 seed, 13-4 overall this year, taking on the Denver Broncos at 10-7. They are back in the postseason party for the first time since winning it all at the conclusion of Super Bowl 50. Bo Nix had an outstanding year, nearly 30 touchdown tosses, did his job on the ground as well, and ended up as a rookie leading this team from day one. We thought after the first couple weeks, "Hey, this is going to be a really tough watch," and it didn't end up being that way. Is there any way that the Broncos pull off the major upset? And sir, I would think maybe the biggest one of the weekend.
Dude, I tried talking myself into this, because the Broncos defense is so good. I think the Bills can be had with their defense. But then I was just like, you know what? Am I going to take Josh Allen? Like, am I going to pick against Josh Allen? Right? Like, as good as the Broncos defense is, they're the number one sack defense. Well, the Bills are the number one sack offense. We're talking about a team with 42 sacks on defense and the Bills 14. What's what's the tiebreaker in that? The quarterback who avoids the sack and makes big plays, and that's Josh Allen. So I hate to simplify this to just, you know what, I'm taking the quarterback, but when I was putting my prep together for this game, I think that's what it just came down to, right? Like they don't have a wide receiver one that like Patrick that they live through that Patrick Surtain can mess up their whole game plan by stopping. I'm just I'm taking the quarterback who avoids the sacks and makes the big plays consistently in Josh Allen.
Yeah, everything that Denver does well defensively, um, Buffalo can counter offensively. In fact, they're the first team in the Super Bowl era to allow fewer than 15 sacks in a season and have fewer than 15 turnovers. Their plus 24 turnover differential was the best in the NFL in the last dozen years. So they do a lot of stuff, not well, but exceptionally well. And so when you're talking about going on the road with a rookie quarterback, hostile environment, um, you're talking about having to get a couple of breaks here and there. And I just don't see Josh Allen and that Bills offense giving them any sort of room. I also think this is a huge opportunity for Josh Allen to run the football. Sometimes, he just starts taking off in playoff games. I've actually liked it that James Cook has become such a centerpiece of their offense, but I really feel like this is one of those opportunities where there's going to be some lanes for him to take off. And it wouldn't surprise me if he has 60 or 70 rushing yards and maybe a couple of rushing touchdowns this weekend.
Yeah, and we know that, he may win the MVP based off of, that added rushing boost that he gives. So I expect Josh Allen to be great. Now that being said, like Bo Nix in this Broncos offense has been really good down the stretch.
Hmm.
Now I do worry that the Charger, the Broncos have given up 34 to the Chargers and then 30 to the Bengals in overtime and losses recently. But like, all right, let me ask you this and let me simplify it. What do you think Bo Nix's first playoff game is going to look like? Because he started off this season looking terribly, and now
Hmm.
he put together a really nice season by the end of it.
Buffalo's gotten some really good defensive players back. I don't think it looks pretty. I don't. I mean, I think it could look a little. He had some missteps at Monday Nighter against Cleveland. They ended up winning, but he was kind of all over the place in terms of completion percentage, getting picked off, getting sacked. I think it could look a little bit like that without the offensive explosiveness. I think it's going to be ugly for them, to be honest with you, offensively.
Really?
Yeah, I do. In part, Sean Payton, we think I mean, he is a genius and he's done exceptionally well. Do you know what his playoff road record is?
I do not. Tell me.
It is 1-5. He won one road playoff game with the New Orleans Saints. And some people say, well, you know what? They were a dome team and they needed to be home. I don't care what it was. I mean, sometimes you got to go on the road in January, and that's the way it goes. His lone win came, I want to say, against maybe Chip Kelly and the Philadelphia Eagles.
That
And
sounds
that's
right.
it.
I think I remember that
Um,
game.
and quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, they don't win on the road. They have lost five straight playoff road games. The last win by a rookie quarterback was by Russell Wilson. And it was against another rookie quarterback in RG3 in the 2012 season. The last rookie to go against like a non-rookie quarterback and win on the road was Mark Sanchez in 2009 against Philip Rivers and then San Diego Chargers. So it just doesn't happen. And I don't think it's going to happen this weekend.
Wait, did you pick the Bucks or the Commanders? Forgot.
I, I don't think it happens. Yeah, I think I did. I picked the Bucks. So yeah, it doesn't happen this weekend.
Okay,
I
okay,
thought you
yeah.
were going
I
to
was
get
just
me on a second. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, I forgot that there's two rookies playing this weekend. So
well, you
yeah,
could have said it doesn't happen until later in the day, and then been like,
right,
the
exactly.
streaks happens until later in the day.
See,
But
but you're smarter than I am, so that would have been pretty good. That would have been pretty
um,
good. Who do you have in this one?
the Bills, I thought about picking the Broncos and getting a little spicy, but I got to take Josh Allen and the Bills.
Yeah, in part because I want to see Lamar go to Buffalo next week.
I
So
think I've
it's
went
just
all home teams too, by the way. Yeah, look,
oh,
we need Lamar versus Allen in the second round. That we need that divisional matchup.
the wild card weekend gets started where it always starts in Houston, Texas. The 10-7 Texans taking on the 11-6 Los Angeles Chargers. Is Justin Herbert looking for that first playoff win? Last time we saw him in the postseason, up 27-0 in Jacksonville. You weren't at that game, were you?
No, I was not.
Okay. Ended up losing, I believe, 31-30. Horrible, horrible second half of the Chargers and their fan base. It feels like everybody has forgotten about CJ Stroud and the Texans, that they just kind of won the AFC South because the rest of the division stinks. Is there reason for Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers to be worried?
Worried, sure, but this is the road team that I'm taking is the Chargers, right? Like the Texans just aren't that good of a team this year. I mean, their only good win this year is against the Bills. And remember, like Josh Allen completed like 33% of his passes in that game. You know, um, like I think that game may have been the one that made them trade for Amari Cooper. And where the Texans are strong, they're like, oh well, the one thing they are really good on defense is they got Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson that got after you. Well, the Chargers have Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. So even if those guys get some wins, they're not going to win consistently and kick ass nonstop. I just think the Chargers are just more ready for this matchup. Like I just what what would be the reason the Texans beat the Chargers outside of like a Justin Herbert choke?
Well, I don't think that happens. He doesn't choke very much. He,
Right, but I'm saying like what would be the reason for that?
um, I think that I'm worried about the Chargers. They don't have playmakers. They just don't. They're
No.
it's the reason that they're like at least a season away. Lad McConkey's been great. You line him up in the slot, I think that he can win. But Quentin Johnston, who looks like he missed practice on Wednesday, that he's got an illness and he's got some sort of quad issue as well. Joshua Palmer missed time with an injured foot. Like they don't have any depth at wide receiver. Who's
And the
going to be the
Texans have
guy?
good corners too.
They do. So who's going to be the guy that wins one-on-one battles outside of Lad McConkey? They don't have anybody at tight end that can do it. Will Dissly has had a great year for him, but I think if you were to rank the 12 tight ends playing this weekend, he's down near the bottom. And then J.K. Dobbins is a little banged up. He injured his leg in their Week 18 win. Gus Edwards, who knows about his availability? They just brought Zeke onto the practice squad. I mean, if he starts toting the rock, it's just I don't think there's a lot of guys that scare you offensive. I think the Chargers are going to have to win this with the number one scoring defense in the NFL, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so that's where I think they do win because I think the Chargers, like I agree, I don't think this Chargers offense is going to go in there and light it up for the exact reasons you just mentioned. Where I don't think they're going to be able to scheme Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer open against Stingley and Lassiter. Uh, but I do think they'll be able to do enough where Herbert's done a lot more with his legs, like you said, hitting Disley and McConkey over the middle. And I don't trust the Texans offense against the Chargers defense. Like they're not going to make mistakes. They're not going to let you create those explosive plays. And I think they're just going to do a sound good job against them. And like I just think that what the Texans' strengths are get kind of eliminated outside of that matchup that you said of the Texans corners versus the Chargers receivers on the outside in there.
How big a game is this for CJ Stroud? He was so spectacular his rookie season, lit up Cleveland in the wild card game. Whatever, he threw for less than 200 yards in that loss at Baltimore, but there's no shame in that. Um, this year he just was not good. He threw, what did he throw, a dozen interceptions or something this year? He didn't look like the same guy at all.
Yeah, that Netflix game was his worst game of his career because it wasn't just some bad decisions, just missed throws, and that you score 2 points that's left in our taste. But I do think he's been better than what that is. I actually don't think this game means a lot when we look at his career trajectory. I think it's a reminder that you know what the Texans do need some better players on that offensive line, and Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs getting injured does actually matter. So I think it's a wake up call for Houston that we do need to add some pieces around this guy that he can't be a miracle worker and expect him to go win a Super Bowl for us.
All right, so we both have the Chargers in this one. Road team.
Yeah, let's go. Jim Harbaugh, my dear guys. I don't know if I could pick them against any other team in the AFC, but I am picking them against the Texans.
Although I do think they would be certainly a more interesting matchup in Kansas City than the Houston Texans, but we'll see how it plays out. Pennick, I know you're listening. Make sure you put your playoff selections there in the comments section and don't use ours. Go use your own brain.
Yeah, don't even listen to the show. Just comment and then listen to the show.
Yes, exactly, exactly. All right, dude.
And give all your detailed notes too.
Enjoy all the games. We will certainly break them down in our next show. So for producer Connor and the AWOL Justin Pennick and Bobby Skinner, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next time here on Football Today, the playoff edition. It is presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL.